Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Get It in Your Ears. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Gill Stanwick. She is a festival programmer at GIIYE. She is originally from Canada, but finds herself living in the UK these days, London more specifically. And I'm just so stoked to be able to talk to her about all that she does in the festival programming world.
Are you ready to party? Let's go.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Is this new year off to a good start for you?
You know, it is. I'm excited. I have more optimism and hope for this year. So I think everyone's going in a bit better prepared and hoping for the best.
Agreed. It's like at this point, it feels like all we can do is hope. So I'm just like staying positive.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, fingers crossed that this year will move in a better direction.
Agreed. So we're just gonna dive in.
Yeah.
And the way I want to kick it off is kind of let's go back to the beginning, thinking of your childhood and how you were raised and kind of like the music influences that were there at the beginning. What was music like in the midst of your childhood for you?
So we grew up listening to music a lot. Both my parents have very different music tastes. So my dad was very classic rock all the time. And my mom was like Donny Osmond, the Carpenters, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So her music strategy was to like play a CD until it literally would melt or like scratch and be done. So she would listen to things on repeat over and over and over again. And my dad was kind of the complete opposite of like throwing the radio on to classic rock and just kind of listening to everything. And he's super into vinyl, so has a ton of records. So I feel like we grew up very heavily influenced with kind of all different types of music, which was quite lucky.
Incredible. And I mean, we're speaking, and I know you because I know your sister, Kate, who's, I would argue your music tastes are on opposite sides of the spectrum. God bless her. Would you say maybe you sided with your dad and his influence of music? Kate sided with your mom?
I would say that is very accurate. She really commits to the music that she listens to.
It's beautiful.
Which a lot of it based from TV shows, which is incredible. There's a market for it. So I think it's helped us understand each other, but also both open us to different music that we otherwise probably wouldn't normally listen to.
Which is the best kind of balance. So you were very influenced by music on both sides, both parents, which is awesome. As you grew up and grew older and were kind of able to pick and choose your own tastes, like how did it evolve? Like how were you discovering music apart from them?
So I really got into like the MySpace, SoundCloud, kind of like those up and coming artists. I think the first kind of realization I had about music and being really passionate about it was I would come home from high school and I had this notebook that had that I basically would fill in with artist names. So I was really into the pop punk emo Vans Warped Tour scene. I was in it. So like Cutest What We Aim For, All Time Low, A Day to Remember, The Main, Mayday Parade, like that was my vibe.
Yeah.
And so I'd come home and I'd be like, okay, Cutest What We Aim For, they're signed to this label. Okay, they've released 3 singles and then an album, and then they're going on a North American tour and they're from Buffalo, but they have this band opening from them. Oh, but that's because they're both signed to the same label, or maybe they have the same management. And I realized that I would then start to like really dig in to those kinds of things. And then I realized that nobody else did that. They'd be like, yeah, cool, I like these bands. But I'd be like, but did you know that they collabed with this artist? And so this has created, and this artist is in this band and all that stuff. So I think I just did a ton of like my own research to try and understand like the roots of all these different artists. And through that, I do credit MySpace. And Apple iTunes, the genius function where it would like create those 25 song playlists based on what you listen to. I was all about that.
I love that. I literally have chills listening to you talk about that because I just relate. That's like most fun part about this project for me is talking to like-minded people, because not everybody, like you said, is this invested in music, and it's just something that some people share. So cool. And so as you were realizing the in and outs of all sorts of layers of the music industry, when did you know you were like, I want to be working in this? Was that a realization, or did you just find yourself landing in this profession?
That's a great question. I remember in grade 12, like trying to apply for university, and I was applying for landscape architecture and
Wow.
just like very random things like fashion,
Mhm.
undeclared majors, like all over the scope. I had no idea kind of what I wanted to do. And I ended up going into radio broadcasting. And through that, there was kind of a music section that I could get involved in. And I kind of volunteered to do that. And I found that I spent a lot of my time doing that and being like, okay, well, we're collaborating with the music program at the college at the time. And so can we do more stuff with these artists? Okay, can I run with that? Can I interview them? Can we kind of make sure we're always doing this? And so I realized that basically music was the one thing that always really consistently got me out of my comfort zone. So that was the first time that like I hated doing things alone. Like I wouldn't go for like dinner alone or go to the movie theater alone or
Mhm.
whatever. And gigs was the one kind of like cross point that I got to where I was like, I really want to go to shows. People don't care enough to spend $20 to go and to them with me. I don't want to keep buying 2 tickets and
Yeah.
dragging people along, especially my sister who was like not into a lot of what I listened to.
Uh-huh.
So that I got to a point where I'd be really bummed that I was not going to gigs. And I eventually was like, I'm just going to go by myself because I really want to do this. And I realized that I was doing that over and over again. And I was like, okay, that is the only kind of like exception to my rule where I found that my passion was like, I'm going to cross these barriers that make me feel uncomfortable because I want to do this so badly. And so that was kind of my like, aha, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I'm spending my spare time and doing. And this is what's kind of pushing me out of my comfort.
Oh, that's so good. I need to get better at being confident about going to concerts by myself, because there's such a beautiful thing to share. I, to this day, well, when concerts were happening, which they will be, I'm believing again soon.
2021.
Yes. I'm the queen of buying 2 tickets, and like, regardless, I'm like, you're coming with me. Like, you're going to love it. It's worth it. 'Cause I just want to share the experience. So
That is my thing is I'm like, I really like at the core, I really want to expose people to really good music that they don't
mhm.
know about
Yeah.
and trying to bring people to gigs. And thankfully it's worked out enough times that people have been like, a walk away being like, I am actually really into this, or like that band is now coming back again. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't work, but I found the beauty in going to gigs alone is that a lot of the times when you go with people, you're stuck at the back. So if you go alone, you can like
True.
wiggle your way to the front
Mhm.
and people want to talk. And so I'm like, I just want to watch this.
Just
So
wanna
actually
soak it
now
up. Yeah.
it's there's certain circumstances, but most of the time I'm like, I'm quite happy to go by myself and just like watch it and embrace it and not worry if the other person is enjoying it or caring and just be like, this is great. And then leave and be like, okay, you can kind of like do your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's just one thing to hear a song in your headphones. It's a completely different experience to see them on stage. You fall in love with whoever is performing more, and you just a deeper appreciation.
I think that is the wildest thing is I always, but the one thing that I really try and do before a gig is look up the set list. So I
Mhm.
know what songs are going to be there, make a playlist and be like, I want to make sure that I know all of the songs and I can fully appreciate them.
Mhm.
And then you get there and you hear them live. And I feel like every time I leave a show, I'm like, I'm obsessed over this artist now. Like sometimes that's not the case, but most of the time you end up just being so much more invested in being like, man, I wish I'd appreciated that show more because now on the other side,
Mhm.
I like, my love for them has increased so much that I
Mhm.
wish that I had this love when I was like going to the gig and appreciated that much. So I think it's like that's one of my favorite things coming out of a gig and just being like that much more energized from seeing something live.
So good. So now you find yourself in the festival realm. Um, what does that look like for you this past year, where it's kind of things were paused? Are they maintaining the like? Are you scrapping things and restarting, or is it like in this hold period?
We're in a very weird hold period. Thankfully, the way that our company works, we've been like very well supported.
Okay.
But for the whole industry, obviously it's in crews and artists and production and kind of all the freelancers, it's been like a really terrible year, and for a lot of independent festivals as well. Originally, obviously we had no idea what this was going to look like, so we basically just tried to transfer all of the lineups over to 2021. And looking at this year, I think there's still some apprehension on what that can look like, recognizing that there's no proper way to do a festival socially distanced. So I think it's trying to find alternatives to seeing if we can do something in a venue, if venues end up being approved, or what that looks like, but recognizing that people are so thirsty for shows, and that's kind of what we thrive off of. I mean, we work insane hours, but being on a festival site is like, and watching kind of the weekend unfold after working the entire year on it is one of the most like exhausting but recharging and satisfying things. So I think we're doing as much as we can, but trying to be like cautiously optimistic, but also have a lot of contingency planning put in place.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all we can do these days. When it comes to crafting a festival lineup, I don't know how much you can speak to this. I'm sure you can speak to it a lot, but are you doing a lot of research? Is it a lot of like shaking hands with labels, like, and getting people, like, what does that process look like?
So the festival I work on specifically, it's really interesting because it's country roots and Americana music.
Okay.
And in North America, I feel like a lot of those artists or styles can't live in the same space. There ends up being a bit of a divide in terms of what subgenres within that genre you listen to. Whereas in the UK, we're quite lucky because it's still a newer and developing genre that we can kind of mix those a bit more. So we kind of go through this balance of what at the core, what do we want to represent? Who are the artists that we feel speak to what we're trying to execute? But then also like, how can we cast our net a bit further? So how can we start bringing other people in that might think that they're not a fan of that genre, and kind of like these crossover artists, how can we kind of bring them in and make everyone feel like there's a bit of music that speaks to them? The interesting dilemma, or I guess kind of one of the things we work through, is recognizing artists, kind of how credible or how known they are in North America versus how well known they are here. So it's a very interesting dynamic, being like, oh, someone who's selling out stadiums or arenas in North America is playing like a smaller venue of like, I don't know, a couple thousand or 100 people here. So we try and find a balance between that and working with the labels to support the artists that they're trying to promote, and also their established artists, their up and coming artists. We partner with a couple labels to do stage takeovers at the festival, so that they can kind of represent some of their new talent that they have that's up and coming. And so it's a massive puzzle. And in terms of artists' availability of coming over here and what that looks like, we're very aware that they do that within country music, especially like doing summer festivals in the US is massive. So we have to try and figure out, with artist touring schedules, what that looks like, and are they in a position to fly over to the UK and all of that. So it's interesting. I think just the dynamic of how well artists are established overseas versus here, and just trying to find a way to make that work.
It's so, and I worked at a business management firm at one point, and there was an artist on the books who was like Britney Spears status in Australia, but in the US barely known. And so it's just so interesting that something that's hitting big in the UK is like, it's just like you said, it's flip-flop, and the same thing, flip-flop, US to UK. It's just crazy to see how different that is. And I think that'll slowly change. I think the gap will close more and more as music becomes more, Spotify is changing the game and how accessible things are. It's like a game for me to go look up new UK artists and be like, get them over here, and people be enjoying their music here. So that's crazy. On the day of a festival or the festival weekends, give us a snapshot of what that looks like for you.
So we normally arrive a couple days before the festival. So maybe like the Wednesday or Thursday before, go on site, do a run through of everything, just kind of make sure everything's being set up. And then I literally have a clipboard of a list of priorities and a schedule of the day. So we wake up, we have like a massive team meeting first thing in the morning. We have catering on site for all of our meals because we're on site from like 7 or 8 a.m. until like 1 a.m.
Oof.
So they're very long days, and you're kind of running around like a crazy person thinking that, you know, you have everything sorted, you know what you need to do, but there's still a million things to do. So I typically just check and make sure everything's set up on time. I do like a lot of the artist stuff leading up to the event, and then hand it over to an artist liaison team, and they kind of execute it on site. I work on like the meet and greets, so making sure that artists are arriving at the time that they're meant to, showing them where the meet and greet spots are. They have merch to sell, so sometimes it's taking the merch over there and help settling up on selling those things, making sure all the stage partners have arrived on time and all the artists are happy. And some of the non-music programming we have, will have like bingo, or we'll play like films, or we have quizzes and stuff. So kind of making sure that all of those people are set up and sorted. And we have like a live band that they do like live band karaoke. So you go up and sing like along with a live band. So we have that in the evening. So there's lots to just kind of make sure that everything's running on time and people know where they're going and what they're doing, which obviously, as much as we plan, never fully goes to plan.
Of course.
So there's lots of that. It's kind of funny. Like, yeah, we think that we have everything sorted, and then there ends up being like a million things on the day that you're running around trying to do, but also trying to make time to take in everything and see the artists that you want to see. And actually just checking the landscape and being like, are the things that we've booked working? Like, are people into this? Are the meet and greet lines long enough? Is there enough security? Do we need to cut it off? Do they need help with anything? And so just, yeah, trying to make sure that you're executing things, but also trying to like observe everything that's going on and retain it, so you know what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah, sounds like a whirlwind. And I'm going to go ahead and say that you should change your title from festival programmer to festival master. the master of festivals.
Yes, well, over time, maybe. I'm not sure I've earned my stripes in that yet, but
fair enough. Well, as we wrap up, I have a couple kind of stepping away from the career-oriented questions and more into the personal questions. What are some of the ways in which you stay connected to music outside of the realm of the work that you do?
Fine. So I subscribe to like Billboard and Music Week and IQ. So I kind of read those articles regularly. But also, so from an artist point of view, the Zane Lowe podcasts and videos, I think he is a very interesting, fascinating person on his own. The way that his music knowledge is insane.
Yeah.
And he just manages people very well. So I listen to those to understand more about artists. And then there's a big music journalist, Bob Lefsetz. And so he has a podcast and he interviews tons of people like in the industry. So it'll be the agent who booked the Celine Dion Las Vegas residency, or the head agents at different companies, or the head of Live Nation in North America and AEG and stuff. And he really dives into a lot of kind of industry questions that may not be appealing to those not in the industry, but very much like, if you book a tour, what do you gross on that? What's the guarantee? What's the ticket split? What's the rebate? Do you own the venues? What if you don't own the venues? Stuff like that, where I've been like, those are questions I've had my entire life.
Yeah.
So getting that information I find fascinating, because there's so much to learn about the industry. So hearing that from people that are currently doing it and being able to download that information is amazing. And then the last one, from a like non-industry expert point of view, is, which I think is a very underutilized tool, is following people on Spotify that you're friends with. Like, I follow you. There's people that I know in the industry. There's people I don't know in the industry. And just being able to see what they're listening to, or being able to listen to their playlists or their daily mixes or whatever, and knowing what people who have their finger on the pulse with new music are listening to. I find that a really amazing tool to stay connected in a non-obvious kind of way.
Yeah. Yes. We have a shared playlist. We need to get that back back and up and going.
It was short-lived.
We're going to get it back though. It's going to come back. So final question for you here. Live music moment. You've had plenty of them. You've alluded to the amounts of gigs you've been to. What would you say is the live music moment you wish you could relive?
Paul McCartney.
Oh,
December 2018 at the O2 Arena in London.
Oh my gosh.
He was touring Egypt Station, which I was really into that album at the time. I don't think anyone else in the audience was super into that album, but I was like, I'm here for this. So between that and obviously playing all of like the classics, I sobbed the entire 3 hours like a baby. Because it was Christmas. He brought out a children's choir for Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
My favorite Christmas song. So
Yes.
I had completely lost it at this point. Both Ronnie Wood and Ringo were there. So he brought them up on stage and played a song together. And I was like, I don't know that I can like take all of this in. And I watched my videos back and I was like, this is horrendous. It's the videos versus my memory are so different, but my memory is so blurred because I was like all over the place. I would love to relive that.
Yeah. That is a good one. Paul McCartney. Oh yeah. He's magic.
So cute. Just you can just tell he's like, him and Dolly Parton, I feel like are the two people that are still so in love with music and so passionate about music.
Yeah.
They're just like, they come across as so lovely and always have kind of the time of day for everyone. Like they're never bored of it. It's based off everything I've seen. That's how they come across anyway. Yeah. And it was like that the entire 3 hours.
Oh, so good. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Having this conversation reminded me of why I want to be doing this, because I just loved hearing your passion for music and am inspired to kind of listen to some of the things you do and learn even more. There is so much to learn. It's a never ending.
Totally. And
journey.
I feel like when I first met you, we connected right away and I was like, oh my God, you're someone else who gets music in that same way, who has that same like spark in them when they talk about and listen to music and are always discovering. So I'm excited that you're doing this and even more because you asked me to be on it. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Actually, one last question. What do you think the people watching this should get in their ears?
Oh, okay. So new artists that I've discovered, really gotten into this year.
Okay.
Jeremy Zucker.
Okay.
He's like pop synth indie.
Okay.
American. Valley, Toronto indie band. Yeah. Madison Cunningham. Okay. And Laura Marling, who's UK based. Her voice is insane. It will give you goosebumps. You will melt. Love her.
That's a solid list. So you've heard it here first from Gill Stanwick. Go get those artists in your ears, and stay tuned for my next conversation. Thanks so much for watching.
Thanks.